The Action 2015 movement, which works together to ensure that 2015 is a transformative year with an ambitious new global sustainable development agenda and an international climate change agreement, set sail in Nigeria through a strategic partnership with leading Nigerian civil society organizations under the Climate and Sustainable Development Network.
A group of organizations world over came together to form a loose network. Loose network in the sense that the organizations that came together came with their part of their sovereignties being volunteered to join this network to make sure that action is taken across the world in the year 2015. And by the end of 2015, these organizations will, go back to their usual positions. Now, the basis of this is that 2015 is a key year. 2015 is a very important year in global discourse. Two important frameworks and processes will come up this year. And one is the United Nations Assembly in September in New York, which will come up with the new Sustainable Development Goals that will succeed the MDGs. And the second is the UNFCCC COP21 coming up in Paris in December, which a new climate agreement for the whole Earth will be reached and will be signed. And so also in March this year, there's going to be a global meeting, a World Assembly on Disaster Risk Reduction, which will come up in Japan. So this year, these frameworks are going to be signed, and as soon as they are signed, they come into law, and they are going to have effect on generations yet unborn, just as they are going to have effect on those that are alive today. And so, for example, the SDGs, which will have like 15-year rolling plan, will come to an end by 2030. And so it is believed that if action is not taken in 2015, in 15 years' time, a lot will still need to be, just like the MDGs are coming to an end today, this year, and many countries in the world are yet to have maternal mortality rates. Many countries in the world are yet to eradicate poverty. Education is still a pipe dream for millions of people across the world. Hunger still ravages our world. Renewable energy and other things like gender equality is still a pipe dream to many women across the world. So we believe that we don't want Sustainable Development Goals to go the way of Millennium Development Goals. And that is why these organizations came together to call on world leaders, using all resources available, to tell them that there is need for them to take action this year. This action must reflect around the future of our children, around the future of our women, and the future of the global population. And the target for this first phase of our campaign, which is the Action 2015 campaign across the world, is to use children who are 15-year-old or less than. Because you will agree with me that by 2030, those children will just be, whoever is 15 years today will be 30-year-old by 2030. So what kind of future are we going to create for that 30-year-old who is 15 today? When MDGs came in 2000, many of us who are adults today were children. And today we can see that we are living, under the debilitating consequences of inaction of some of our leaders when MDG was being rolled up in 1999-2000. So now we want our leaders to come up with concrete plans, actions and programs that will ensure that Sustainable Development Goals reflect a sustainable future for us all.
Key demands of Action 15 Nigeria includes the urgent need for all 2015 commitment to reflect an end to extreme poverty that condemns millions of people, especially women and girls, to an early death, poor education and ill health, a turning point in the soaring levels of inequality and discrimination driven by economic policies that deliver for the few rather than the many, and an accelerated transition to 100% renewable energy so that a safer climate and sustainable development with all its benefits for people and planet is made possible. Action 2015 Nigeria also demands that the post-2015 framework must help to make climate action in all countries happen without further delay, and must support people, particularly in Africa and Nigeria, to build resilience so as to adapt to climate impacts they are experiencing already.
We want by 2030, we want a plan that will come up that will make Nigeria to transition to renewable energy by 100%. 100% transition to renewable energy by 2030 is what we want. And so we want all the organs of government, agencies, MDAs, and all critical stakeholders in the power sector in Nigeria to sign up to this action to ensure that the sustainable development goals in aspect of energy is made possible in Nigeria. To also ensure that the climate treaty we're going to sign in December, Nigeria will make credible input into it with a hope that we will transition to 100% renewable energy by 2030.
Is a conference that we're going to be harmonizing all the framework.
Olumide Idowu is the coordinator of Climate Wednesday, an online discussion platform on the environment. He is leading the Nigerian youth to Japan this March, where tens of thousands of civil servants and representatives of non-governmental organizations are to meet in the country's Tohoku region to examine global approaches to disaster response. His worry sometimes is the lack of commitment in the move to save the environment.
When I talk about something and I don't do it, it definitely means that we are not going anywhere. And when you go to do an awareness and along the line somebody see you doing something against that what you are saying, I think it's something that actually kills the spirit of people you are talking to take action also. Like you go to a community to tell them about renewable energy and they see you doing another thing against it. There's no how. You can't change anything again. That means the change you want to make is definitely not there. So one of the things I always let people know is that in a little way, anything you can do to contribute to sustainable development is part of it. Like, let me give you an example of recycling. Recycling is something that, I need to say this, Lagos State they've done something very, very interesting when it comes to recycling. And they've invested and they've supported a lot of recycling organizations. And I always say it, I have a bag in my house. I'm a fan of keeping bottles. So what I do every time is just to call one recycling organization to come and pick it up. And I think I also do that for some more people staying around me. And I think if we keep on doing this, when you tell your neighbor tell another people, it's something that is sustainable. You can't do it all, but you have to start from somewhere. So for those people that are advocating for this change and they are not taking the responsibility, I think those are the people that are actually killing the system. They're actually the one that is making things and not moving fast.
Studies show that environmental factors, while often not the sole cause of violent conflict, can spark violence and contribute to chronic instability and unrest if not properly managed. At least 40% of all violent conflicts in the last 60 years have been linked to natural resources. This is set to worsen as climate change and more frequent natural disasters are expected to increase the risk of such conflict by degrading the available resource base. Low-income countries, which are largely dependent on natural resources, will be worst affected. These economies are 10 times more likely than other developing countries to experience civil war and significantly slower economic growth than similar countries without major natural resources. Whether or not the document will contain a goal dedicated to climate change has concerned some countries and civil societies groups. Supporters say that without a dedicated goal on climate change, sustainable development more widely would be impossible.
How do you negotiate a fair deal when a third of the world has already taken a lot of the stuff and now is getting scared about not having it anymore, and the other 2/3 would like to have the same but have no chance to have the same? That's the heart of the Sustainable Development Agenda of the United Nations today. Trying to find a way in which 7 billion people can find a new compact for the future. That remains a fundamental principle of environmental sustainability. But understanding how nature and our environment will actually sustain development in the future. When you talk about more jobs, more power, more transport, more energy, more food, for more people with higher living standards, you're essentially talking about environment and the natural resource base of this planet and the relationship between people and nature or between environment and the economy.
Many have described 2015 as the mother of all years for summits on international development. But the question is, will any of this deliver meaningful change for poor people and the planet? The central goal of the summit is to chart a course towards the eradication of extreme poverty, more equitable globalization, and climate stability. On Monday, the 19th of January, the anti-poverty charity Oxfam said more than half of the world's wealth will be owned by just 1% of the population by next year as global inequality soars. The report, which was released just before the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, said the top tier had seen their share of wealth increase from 44% in 2009 to 48% in 2014, and current trends it will exceed 50% in 2016. Oxfam called for action to tackle rising inequality at the Davos meeting, including a crackdown on tax dodging by corporations and progress toward a global deal to climate change.
So this is about three key issues that we think need to be at the top of the agenda in Davos. It's about poverty, inequality and climate change. In 2015, there's key opportunities to make a difference. And like these snowmen, they won't be here forever. If we don't make the difference in 2015, we're going to miss that opportunity, and world leaders need to accelerate the pace of change if we're going to make a breakthrough in this year.
The richest 80 individuals in the world had the same wealth as the poorest 50% of the entire population, some 3.5 billion people. This was an even bigger concentration at the top than a year ago, when half the world's wealth was in the hands of 85 of the ultra-rich. The current growth patterns are skewed against the poor, and we leave 266 million below the $1.25 poverty line in Africa alone. Policy watchers have concluded that achieving a successful outcome in 2015 will not be easy. This is because the world is not experiencing the best of times for international cooperation.
I recently read somewhere that the success of a post-2015 development agenda will depend on how well we all communicate. The launch of Action 2015 is a reminder that everyone's voice, from average citizens to local policymakers and the United Nations delegates, is important to achieving our development goals beyond 2015. As a famous African proverb states, if you want to go quickly, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And that's our program. But you can view the show online at channelstv.com/Earthfile or youtube.com/channelsweb. Till we are back again with you, should you have any comment or questions, our inbox, earthfile@channelstv.com is always available. From all of us here, it's bye for now.